It's a new week, a new month, a new time for our date with you guys, my Israel Brief community, who join me, Rolene Marks, every Monday to Thursday, where we take a look at top stories making headlines here. And we do it with the help of these guys, Lay of the Land. They kindly provide the platform for us to share the latest updates and breaking news stories happening in Israel. And it is day 241 of Israel's war with Hamas that started on the 7th of October, following the atrocities committed by Hamas when thousands of terrorists broke into Israel from the Gaza Strip and raped, murdered, mutilated, tortured, and kidnapped civilians. Now, the reason I keep talking about that is because many in the world have forgotten the events of the 7th of October or don't understand just how severe and the sheer scale of the attack was, or have, even worse, denied it. So we are going to constantly remind you here at the Israel Brief exactly what happened. So let's take a look at the top stories. And one of the big issues being discussed at the moment is a proposal for a permanent ceasefire, or in the interim, at least a 6-week ceasefire and surge of humanitarian aid that was put forward by President Biden on Friday night Israel time and afternoon US time. Now, it is a bit ambiguous who wrote the proposal, who was involved with the proposal, but let's take a look at the terms of the proposal. So basically, we have 3 phases that would include a 6-week ceasefire. And of course, we want to see an increase in the amount of humanitarian aid that enters the Strip. And again, I urge you all to Google COGAT, that's COGAT, that takes you to the site where you can monitor for yourself the amount of humanitarian aid that enters the Strip on a daily basis. So phase 1, it would be a 6-week ceasefire. This would begin with the IDF withdrawing from populated areas of Gaza. Humanitarian aid, including up to 600 trucks daily, will be delivered to Gaza, and hostages will be exchanged for Palestinian prisoners. I also want to reiterate the issue of Palestinian prisoners. These are prisoners who are criminals or terrorists with blood on their hands. Contrary to what the pro-Hamas camp say, they are not hostages, they are prisoners. Phase 2, all remaining living hostages, including male soldiers, will be returned. The ceasefire will transition into a permanent cessation of hostilities if all terms are adhered to. It's also very ambiguous which hostages are included in which phase of the deal. There are a few families who want absolute clarification, when they could expect either their loved one to come back or the remains of their loved one to come back. And phase 3, the final remains of any deceased Israeli hostages will be returned. A major reconstruction plan for Gaza will be implemented with US and international assistance to rebuild homes, schools, and hospitals. Now, of course, this has had mixed reactions. And one thing that the president did say is that should Hamas violate any terms of a ceasefire, Israel is well within our right to resume attacking them. And he also made it very clear that he believes that Israel has every right to take out Hamas. So we've had some mixed reactions, as you can imagine. The far-right elements of the government, like Finance Minister Bezalel Smotrich and the National Security Minister Itamar Ben-Gvir, have both threatened to collapse the coalition and collapse the government if the Prime Minister agrees to this. The Prime Minister has reiterated the goals of the war: to wipe out Hamas and, of course, to return the hostages. Families of the hostages, the leader of the opposition, Yair Lapid, President Isaac Herzog, have all welcomed this deal, saying it is absolutely imperative we get our people back. These are people's loved ones. Imagine if it was your husband, your child, your father, your mother, your lover, somebody that you love very much, being held hostage in the terror tunnels of Gaza. Egypt has said that from Hamas's side it is looking positive, and Secretary of State Antony Blinken has urged Israeli officials to accept the terms of the deal. And of course we will be following this and keeping you up to date. While we are talking about hostages, the IDF announced earlier today that the remains of Dolev Yehudi, who was presumed murdered or taken hostage on the 7th of October, had been found on kibbutz Nir Oz. Dolev was a father of 4. In fact, his wife gave birth to their youngest just a week after the 7th of October. He was presumed to have been taken hostage, and it was unclear. I just want to correct what I said a moment ago. It was unclear whether or not he was murdered on the day or just taken hostage. Now we have confirmation that he was murdered. His remains found on kibbutz Nir Oz. He was a volunteer paramedic with United Hatzalah as well as Magen David Adom, and his remains were taken to Shura base, where forensic experts and anthropological experts confirmed that it was in fact Dolev Yehudi. I just want to say something, because I'm on social media a lot. We hear a lot from the World Health Organization, a lot from human rights organizations, a lot from Dr. Tedros Ghebreyesus. He is the Secretary General of the World Health Organization, lamenting the situation for Palestinians. And of course, we in Israel feel for our neighbors. We don't want to see Palestinians suffer. But not a word has been mentioned about our paramedics, our first responders and healthcare workers who were brutally slaughtered on the 7th of October, ambulances deliberately destroyed so they could not get to people who needed help, and hospitals that have been struck by rockets and drones, either fired from Hamas in the south or from Hezbollah in the north, that have also led to casualties, both civilian and soldier. The message that I get from the World Health Organization with regards to our hostages, with regards to our healthcare workers murdered or taken hostage, with regards to the attacks on our infrastructure, tells me that when it comes to Israeli lives, they just don't seem to matter. The island of the Maldives, their government has made the decision to ban Israelis from visiting what used to be a popular tourist destination. And I just want to give a shout out to a Christian leader who I saw on X earlier today, saying that he's going to issue a directive to his congregation also not to visit the Maldives. This was announced yesterday. The cabinet will amend a law that will bar all Israeli passport holders from entering the mostly Muslim country. Last year, about 11,000 Israelis visited the Maldives, and about 0.6% of their tourist revenue came from Israelis. Now, I just have one thing to say. Well, I have a few things to say. First of all, the Pacific Islands look much better this time of the year. The Pacific Islands, Fiji and others, great friends to Israel and the Jewish people. But when you institute something to be Judenrein or Jew-free, or bar people from entering your country based on their ethnicity, that sounds, I don't know, a lot, not just anti-Semitic and Jew-hating, but a lot like apartheid. And I would know because I grew up in South Africa during the apartheid years. So in my opinion, and this is my opinion, the Maldives is an apartheid state, something they accuse Israel of routinely. Let's end on a happy note. Over the weekend, we saw tremendous shows of solidarity all around the world. Thousands took to the streets of Madrid demanding the immediate release of the hostages. And yesterday in New York City, about 45 to 60,000 people marched in solidarity with the State of Israel for the annual Israel Day parade. And in the United Kingdom, the streets of London were filled. 40,000 people strong marched demanding the release of the hostages. What I found quite incredible about these marches is that unlike some other marches, there were no calls for genocide. Nobody was arrested. Nobody wore masks. And Israeli flags were flown alongside American flags and British flags and Spanish flags, and none of those flags were burnt. Just goes to show. I wonder what it could be. Also on a positive note, legendary actor Michael Douglas is in Israel at the moment paying a solidarity visit. Yesterday he was on Kibbutz Be'eri, one of the hardest hit kibbutzim, speaking about just how devastating it was to see the level of destruction. He also went to the Nova Festival site and met and heard from survivors and met with the families of hostages. He then visited with President Herzog and our First Lady, Mrs. Michal Herzog, where he was given a dog tag like this one, as well as a yellow ribbon pin for our hostages. And he said he was happy to be in Israel, happy to be here in support of Israel, that the United States stands in solidarity and is an ally of Israel. And he called those on campuses calling for the destruction of Israel and spouting their hate rhetoric brainwashed. So thank you, Michael Douglas. I have a funny need to watch a whole lot of Michael Douglas movies now. Wonder why. But those are top stories, guys. Don't forget to check out our website at www.layoftheland.online, our Facebook page at Lotlsite, that's at LOTLSITE. Our YouTube channel right here is at the Israel Brief, and we're on X at Lay of the Land 5. I'm Rolene Marks for the Israel Brief. You guys know I adore you. Take care of yourselves, take care of each other. I'll be back with your headlines tomorrow.